Hi, ArcfieldWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Wednesday morning, May 4th. Continuation of an active weather pattern will produce more severe weather today across the heartland. Places like Texas and Oklahoma have to be on guard for later today into tonight for the possibility of severe thunderstorms and isolated tornadoes. That threat will shift somewhat to the east on Thursday, but still the threat for some severe weather on Thursday up across the Mississippi Valley to the Ohio Valley. There was some overnight rainfall in the mid-Atlantic region, even some heavy downpours in and around the D.C. metro region in the overnight hours, and is causing a continuation of some flood warnings in the D.C. metro region. It'll remain wet today for the most part with some more occasional showers in the mid-Atlantic. Then a nice break in the action on Thursday. Yet another storm system brings more rain from Friday into Saturday in the mid-Atlantic region and cooler conditions as well. We'll talk about beyond that kind of an interesting overall weather pattern with very, very strong high pressure forming over eastern Canada later on this weekend, and it could actually help to push a stalled out low pressure system off the East Coast back to the west towards the East Coast sometime later next week. First of all, for today and tonight, the highest probability of severe weather will be across places like Texas and Oklahoma, but really right across the southern and central plains. You have to be on guard today. There can be some strong thunderstorms all the way to the eastern seaboard, but again, the biggest threat, as depicted here by the Storm Prediction Center of NOAA, right across Oklahoma and Texas with an enhanced chance of severe weather. Now here's the outlook for tomorrow. It shifts to the east a little bit, right towards the Mississippi Valley region, really northeastern Texas, northwestern Louisiana, and much of Arkansas in an enhanced region. So again, the threat today, Texas, Oklahoma, it shifts a little bit to the east on Thursday and Thursday night as this overall very active weather pattern continues at least for the remainder of this week and looks like indeed for the next couple of weeks. Well, here's the latest radar loop for the Mid-Atlantic region from the College of DuPage weather website. Still some shower activity, especially across southeastern Pennsylvania this Wednesday morning. Some scattered to isolated showers remain around the D.C. metro region. Again, they had some downpours in the overnight hours with some flood warnings to be cognizant of this morning in the D.C. metro region. Still some showers headed for New York City. And upstream, still some showers across upstate Pennsylvania, upstate New York. An unsettled weather pattern continues today. Certainly not an all-day type of rain, but it can be a shower or even a thunderstorm at any time in the Mid-Atlantic region in the Northeast. And then a nice break in the action comes on Thursday. Well, let's take a look at last night's operational run of the GFS at 0Z. We're looking at the 500 millibar height anomalies, and we'll see something that jumps out clearly by the time we get to the latter part of the weekend or the early part of next week in terms of very, very strong upper level ridging across eastern Canada, and that will have an interesting effect along the east coast, especially perhaps the southeastern coastline later next week. First of all, a lot of upper level lows right now on the weather map, and that will continue to be the case over the next several days. Hence, an active weather pattern, more severe weather threats today. Again, Texas, Oklahoma. Tomorrow it shifts a little bit to the east to Arkansas, northwest Louisiana, northeast Texas. And here is one of the culprits, deep upper level low by the time we get into later Thursday night, into the day on Friday. That spells trouble for the Mid-Atlantic region, especially, let's say, Philadelphia, D.C. New York City could stay on the northern skirts of this rain event Friday into Saturday. They'll probably get some rain, but the more soaking rainfall looks like Philadelphia, especially down across D.C. from Friday into Saturday, with this as a main culprit, a deep upper level low sliding across the Ohio Valley by the time we get to Friday night. And then on Saturday, it drives to a halt in its push to the north and starts to turn to the south and east as high pressure ridging starts to form here over the southeastern part of Canada. Here we are on Mother's Day. It looks like there'll be a very strong surface high pressure system across southeastern Canada, likely producing generally dry conditions in the I-95 corridor region from D.C. to Philadelphia to New York City on Sunday, Mother's Day. But it should be cool and breezy, and it's still not quite 100% certain yet, because this low pressure area that moves across the Ohio Valley, then the Mid-Atlantic region, early part of the weekend, stalls out as it moves off the eastern seaboard right in this fashion right here. At the same time, very, very strong high pressure ridging develops across southeastern Canada. And by the way, this is a pattern we'll really closely monitor during the tropical season. We're at the very beginning stages right now as we push through the beginning part of May. But anytime you see strong high pressure ridging up to the north and east of here, of the Mid-Atlantic region, in places like eastern Canada, that opens the door for tropical activity along the eastern seaboard. And in fact, what happens this week is, while this develops, intensifies, look at this, by the time we get to Tuesday of next week, very, very strong high pressure ridging setting up over northern New England, southeastern Canada. That low pressure area that moves slowly across the Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic region, stalls out along the just off the east coast early next week. And with this in place, it actually can cause this to back westward towards the southeastern U.S. coastline sometime later next week. We'll move forward here and watch this thing start to turn back to the west. And again, this is a pattern that we will certainly look out for during the heart of the tropical season. Anytime you get this kind of high pressure ridging anomaly to the north here, that opens the door for potential tropical activity, especially along the southeastern U.S. coastline from the Carolinas down to Florida. Now, whether this ends up being called a tropical system or not, who knows? Too early to tell. Let's call it a subtropical system right here. Could back westward next week with this tremendous high pressure ridging developing across the northeastern part of the nation. This could ultimately bring this system right back into Florida, somewhere along the southeastern coastline later next week, maybe as a subtropical type of system. Maybe, who knows, if NOAA will actually call it a tropical system. But this is a very interesting pattern here setting up for later next week. Eventually, that high pressure system does tend to fade away, but for several days next week, it'll be quite interesting, especially what happens to that stalled out low pressure area off the eastern seaboard. It looks like it'll back westward towards the southeastern U.S. coastline, maybe all the way down to Florida sometime next week. Something we'll keep an eye on over the next several days. Well, let's wrap up with the surface forecast maps from the 0Z GFS model run. Again, unsettled weather pattern across the nation. Showers today across the Mid-Atlantic, Northeast U.S. Another cold air mass for this time of the year, resulting in snowfall this morning across the higher elevations of the central and northern Rockies. And we've talked about this extensively, with that cold air sweeping in from the north and west. At the same time, you have warm, humid air pushing up out of the Gulf of Mexico. You set up a clash of air masses and a severe weather threat. Today, focused on northern Texas, Oklahoma. Tomorrow shifts a little bit to the east to Arkansas, northwestern Louisiana, northeastern Texas. And again, a big part of the story is a continuation of cold air outbreaks that are working their way from Canada into the U.S. Let's move forward here. Again, watch out. Oklahoma, Texas, later today and tonight. Still occasional showers in the northeastern part of the nation. And here's a potential squall line developing by this evening across the northern part of Texas, western part of Oklahoma. This is an area of concern, something that will need to be closely monitored later today into tonight. Again, the possibility of isolated tornadoes from northern Texas into Oklahoma and throughout the southern and central plains. Be on guard later today and tonight. That whole area shifts eastward on Thursday, and watch out in Arkansas, northwestern Louisiana, northeastern Texas, right here along this potential squall line. There could be some severe thunderstorm activity, maybe isolated tornadoes. The Mid-Atlantic experiences a nice break in the action on Thursday, partly to mostly sunny skies in places like D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, probably afternoon highs in the lower 70s. That break in the action is just temporary, however. This low pressure system will move across the Ohio Valley, produce some chilly rainfall across the Mid-Atlantic region and Ohio Valley from later tomorrow night across the Ohio Valley, and then Friday into Saturday in the Mid-Atlantic region. This is the same system that will end up stalling just off the eastern seaboard. Look at this. By the time we get to Saturday morning, here comes that low pressure area. Its northward advance stops sharp in the Ohio Valley. Then it's kind of forced to the south and east by this developing high pressure system over the southeastern part of Canada. And here is that setup developing over the upcoming weekend with very strong high pressure, especially aloft over eastern Canada by the time we get to Sunday morning. And this system stalls off the eastern seaboard. It looks like a high pressure to the north and east right here probably control the weather, but it's still too early to be certain across the across the I-95 corridor. However, coastal sections could still be impacted by this stalling out low pressure system on Sunday, Mother's Day. Let's push it forward a little bit here, and here we go. Probably breezy, cool day on Sunday. DC, Philadelphia, New York City, probably dry, but we'll have to still watch out. This is a tricky forecast for Mother's Day because of this stalled out low pressure system. Then we turn ahead and look at this. This starts to retrograde back to the west, back towards the eastern seaboard, as that very, very strong high pressure system develops over the eastern part of Canada, the northern part of New England. Here we go. By the time we get to next Thursday, this is that same system that helps to cause some severe weather tomorrow in the lower part of the Mississippi Valley. Then it moves over the Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic region, off the eastern seaboard, and it starts to turn back to the west by later next week and could impact Florida, the southeastern U.S., maybe as a subtropical system later next week, all as a result of very, very strong high pressure ridging that will form over New England and eastern part of Canada later this weekend, going into the early and middle part of next week. Very interesting weather pattern for the next week or so. Stay tuned for updates at arcfieldweather.com. That's it for now. I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.